there, everyone, and welcome to the Extreme Improv podcast, the Mega Movie podcast. So on this show today, we're going to be discussing all sorts of movies, and because it is this time of year, we're going to be discussing some horror stuff. Yes, it's October at the moment, and we're going to be talking about different horror movies. My name, as always, unless I'm playing a character, is David Pustansky, and today I'm joined by Marty Gordon. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm good. How is everybody?
I hope they are well out there in listening land. Of course, if you're listening to this, you should check out the video version on youtube.com/extreme improv. But if you're watching it, then you should head over to your phone or iPod or wherever you listen to these things, and you can get an audio version of this too. So, Marty, horror movies. Tell me things.
Yes, I love
horror
them.
movies.
Yes, I do. And I listened to the show you did with Danny, and you guys covered quite a lot of stuff. It sounded like y'all covered zombies pretty thoroughly. So I was wondering if maybe we should go back in time to the earlier days. Since I'm an older fella.
Okay, let's do it. Let's see.
Wondering if we go back and talk about some of the older horror movies.
Okay, so what are we talking about here? Like original Dracula, Nosferatu, Bride of Frankenstein?
Yeah, those things, and leading on up into, I mean, I'm sure we're going to jump around a lot, but I've been watching horror movies since I was a little guy, and so I've seen. It sucks because when I was a kid, we only had 3 channels, and if you didn't catch the movie, you couldn't watch it.
Yeah.
So I would pore over. Once I got old enough and realized that I was a horror movie junkie, I would get the little TV guide in the paper on Sunday, and I would pore through that thing, and any horror movie that popped up that I was interested in, I would circle it, and then I would, if it was really late at night, I would beg my parents to let me stay up and watch it. And sometimes they would let me, and sometimes they wouldn't. So I saw as much as I could, but I missed a lot too.
Okay, so interesting thing there. What was the first horror film you remember seeing?
When I was 4 or 5 years old, I was at my aunt's house, and my cousin was watching. He's several years older than me. He was watching a monster movie on television, and it's called 20 Million Miles to Earth.
Okay.
It's a if you know who he is, it's a Ray Harryhausen stop motion monster movie.
Cool.
And it's about this monster that they find a rocket ship from Venus, and inside of it is this little creature. But when they introduce the creature to our atmosphere, he starts to grow.
Yeah.
And by the end of the movie, he's gigantic. And so I saw that, and it scared the life out of me. And I don't know where I transitioned from being scared of that to loving that, but that's the first one that I can remember ever seeing, or at least, even part of it. I saw part of it.
Yeah. Okay, here's a little bit of a coincidence and trivia for you. Now, I don't remember that I'd ever heard of that film. However, and this is slightly off of the direct topic of horror films here, but when we've had Extreme Improv shows in theatres, I will usually include a lot of video into like projections and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I just got something that said connection timed out. I hope we don't lose connection. If you're still there, then we'll keep going.
I'm here.
Yeah, we had like an intro, and for the one that we did literally a year ago, because it was in October, I gave it like a horror theme, and I went onto the internet and I got trailers of old horror movies and then just repurposed the footage and incorporated it into it. But I've looked up now just to see what you were talking about, 20 Million Miles to Earth. And I see like the big green man with like the long tail on the poster.
Yes.
That is the exact footage that I used in the Extreme Improv's intro credits, which, when I do play the intro credits on the weekly Extreme shows, that exact monster is on every show.
Oh, well, I've never seen the credits because I'm always on this side of things.
It's from that exact film. So how about that?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, that's pretty cool.
Coincidence.
Yeah, and so, like I said, and I think now that I'm thinking about it, I think the transition from that movie, being scared of it, to starting to like movies like that, and then transitioning to the harder stuff, probably was Godzilla movies.
Okay. So, what do you think makes it so that you go from something scaring you to where you actually appreciate it or enjoy it or like it? Do you like to be scared?
I do enjoy being scared to a certain degree. There are some movies that are a little bit too intense for me, and I don't like the genre of torture porn. You can interpret that however you want, but
like
those
Saw
movies,
kind of thing, Hostel.
I actually liked Saw because Saw was more, I don't know, I just found it to be more like a thriller.
I completely agree, but they went
so
much more torture in all the sequels.
They did, and I think I watched Saw 2, but then after that I was like, no, I'm not interested in this anymore. If this is the direction they're going in.
Yeah.
But you were talking to Danny the other day about Evil Dead and the remake. I did not like the remake. I thought it was just too intense and too, I don't know, it freaked me out. So
no, I agree.
Okay,
I guess saying about Godzilla.
Yeah, well, growing up on television was really the only way I had, until I got to be a certain age. It's the only way I had to watch these things, and so, like I said, I would mark in the little book, the little TV guide, when they were going to be on, and then I would hopefully watch them, catch them and watch them. And I loved Godzilla movies growing up, and to be honest with you, I saw very few of them. But
okay, so were they Japanese films dubbed into English?
Yes, they were, but
okay.
I was too young or too stupid to know that. I remember distinctly watching King Kong versus Godzilla.
Yeah.
On television late one night. And then I also remember coming across accidentally one time the very end of a Gamera movie. I don't know if you know who Gamera is. He's the giant. He's the giant turtle.
Okay.
He started out as a giant, a kaiju monster, but then as the movies progressed, he became more friendly and more like a hero. There's always, when there's a Gamera movie, there's always a couple of little children, hanging around going, "Yay, Godzilla!" or "Yay, Gamera!" Dude, beat him up, Gamera, whatever.
Yeah.
So, and of course, I just love those.
Okay, so that's sort of something that's mostly, I suppose, gone away nowadays, like the big giant monster, unless they specifically bring back Godzilla. I mean, what's the other thing they've done like that? I suppose Cloverfield was a big monster.
Cloverfield, Pacific Rim.
Oh, I've not seen that.
Oh, the first one is good. The second one is trash.
Is it a big monster? I thought that was something involving robots.
It's robots versus giant monsters.
Well, there you go.
So
didn't they do like
I'm a sucker for that.
Godzilla, like a robot Godzilla at one point?
Yes, there is a movie. There is a movie with a Robo Godzilla. I think they call him Robo Godzilla or Mecha Godzilla or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's Mecha Godzilla.
Yeah, and they also did a mechanical King Kong in a movie.
Wow, I don't remember this at all.
Yeah, he's called Mechanicong.
Okay.
As you can tell, I'm a big, huge nerd.
No. I love all this trivia. The only thing that feels a shame for me is a lot of these older ones I haven't seen to know the specifics. But when I just looked up Gamera, and I'm familiar enough with it. I don't think I've seen any of those films, but I recognise them.
Yeah, and like I said, I have not seen a lot of them, and I would love to fill in the gaps, but I'm also finding that as I get older, I don't have as much time to sit in front of a TV and watch a movie that I missed when I was a kid. So I don't know how to balance that. And then, and then I watch it. I'm like, oh, I really wanted to see this when I was a kid. Well, this isn't that good. But, when I was a kid, I probably would have watched it and loved it. Because, our perspectives have changed.
Yeah, and I suppose like special effects for the most part are better now. I say for the most part, just because there are some things where they used to do things practically, and then like when they first started doing CGI, like I suppose 20 years ago now, and you look back at some of it, like I don't know if you ever saw the original film Jumanji.
Long time ago.
Okay, well, if you watch that, there's like CGI monkeys and rhinos in it, and they look like laughably bad. So, like, if you watch, even like, because that came out in the mid-90s, if you watch like Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, and Jim Carrey is disguised as a rhino at some point, it's just like a model animatronic rhino, and it looks good. But then you look at like an equivalent in Jumanji, and it doesn't hold up well. And I suppose, like, one of the old films which I always loved growing up was Jason and the Argonauts with the skeleton. Oh, yeah. Remember that? Stop motion. Like, some of these old stop motion things, they look so cool. And when I watch them now, I still think that looks really good. But
yeah, and so that's Ray Harryhausen as well.
Yeah.
He's the one that did all the really good stop motion movies. Yeah, I'm a sucker for those. I love those.
So, did he do King Kong?
No, but he was an apprentice on that movie. There was a guy named Willis O'Brien who did the special effects, and Ray Harryhausen was very, very young and came in and did, I think, a little, or, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he might have been the apprentice or one of the younger workers on Mighty Joe Young. I do know that he started his career working with Willis O'Brien.
Yeah.
Because Willis O'Brien did King Kong, then Son of Kong, then Mighty Joe Young. And it might have been Mighty Joe Young that Ray Harryhausen was on.
Okay, because Mighty Joe Young strikes me as a film that came out in like the 90s. Is that a remake?
They did a remake, and it's...
Wow, I didn't know that there was a previous version of it.
Yeah, and I love that movie. I still, because it's the stop motion, I can still watch it and still love it. Even though, it's herky jerky and very cheesy and things like you should get it and watch it and see if you like it. I mean, some of the acting is not that great, but I still love it. And then, of course, I don't know, anything with a monster in it, I'm a sucker for. Yeah. The other night I knew the reviews weren't very good on it, but I got the movie Underwater that came out earlier this year.
I don't know that at all.
Yeah, well, it's got Kristen Stewart and Vincent Cassel and some other people in it, and it's about this deep sea, mining operation, kind of like the Abyss or Deep Six. What is that? Deep Star 6, whatever that little pocket. And it's not. I wouldn't say it's a fantastic movie, but it's not bad. It's pretty good, and the special effects are good. It looks good. It's got good cinematography.
Yeah, and that's a monster movie.
It is. It turns out that at the end, there are monsters. Ooh. Yeah. So.
So that's cool. So, what are the other monster movies from, I suppose, over the years that have jumped out to you?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. Let's see. My favorites, I guess, would be. I mean, my all-time favorite is The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing.
Yeah, love that film. It's one of my
And that,
favorite films.
yeah, and that's an ultimate example of practical effects that still stand up.
Yeah,
Because I don't know if you saw the prequel that
I
came out
did.
a few years ago.
Yeah.
Really bad.
What, the effects were really bad or the film was really bad? Or both?
Well, I think the bad effects made the film bad.
Okay.
Um,
I could appreciate how they made it like in a sense a love letter to the first film. It was almost a remake, but everything was just about the this. I love in films when there's like a story which hasn't been seen that's already happened, and it's because that one clearly had got another movie that you saw the aftermath of in the middle of it, and it's
yeah,
like now they were going to tell it, and I really enjoyed that fact, but it did feel like it was too similar. It was trying to be too similar to the original, and it just wasn't. It wasn't as good. The atmosphere wasn't as good. I don't know what the running time was, but it felt a bit rushed. Whereas in the John Carpenter film, it feels like there's just this building paranoia amongst everyone. Whereas in the prequel, it feels all very quick. It feels like there's times where the monster reveals itself unnecessarily.
yeah. I I don't know if you know this, but they filmed the entire. I think they finished, or they almost finished the entire movie with practical effects.
Oh, this
And
is the prequel,
and
yes.
the movie studio didn't like it and replaced everything with CGI.
Yeah.
And I've gone on the internet and found some of the practical effects that they still have footage of, and it's fantastic stuff. It's as good as the original movie, and I'm like, why did they do this?
Mm.
Um, that's why I'm so happy that Guillermo del Toro, when he makes a film, he is very much in favor of using as much practical effects as possible. Using CGI as an enhancement versus everything being CGI.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there was something announced earlier this year. They're making a new film of The Thing, or a sequel, or a remake. Did you hear this?
I'm not.
I'll try and find
I,
it. What we're saying about it. But okay,
I
let's stick to The Thing, and then we can perhaps go back to some of the older stuff because we have skipped about 30 years. But
yeah.
The Thing, what do you think makes it such a good film in your opinion?
Well, obviously the suspense. It's got this. It's almost like a murder mystery, 10 Little Indians kind of thing. Who's next, who's going to be next. The mystery of you could almost do Revenge of the Werewolf as The Thing. Um,
Okay, so for anyone listening who doesn't know what we're referring to there, on the Extreme Improv like streaming shows that we do at the moment, on a Friday we do a show called Revenge of the Werewolf, which is based on the social deduction game Werewolf or Mafia. And it was completely on my mind to do a version of it based on The Thing, except for someone's already released like a card game, a board game of one based, and it's called Who Goes There, which is the original title of the novella that's The Thing was based on. So someone's
yes.
already kind of got there.
Well, I mean, it could have been done, and I'm not surprised that it crossed your mind to do that.
Yeah,
Um,
well, at some point we could do it. It would just change the look and feel of things a little bit. But yeah, there's already something that came out only about 2 years ago where it is like a board game where you take on the actual characters McCready and Childs and so on and so forth, and it is that kind of thing.
yeah, I saw the game. I wasn't sure if I would enjoy it because believe it or not, I am just not much of a gamer.
Yeah.
I just do not. I just don't get into that for some reason. But But yeah, back to monsters.
Oh
I
no, but
guess.
when I say a game, I don't mean a video game. I mean,
Oh no, I know what you mean.
all right, yeah, like a
Yeah,
RPG, I suppose.
I saw it on the shelf at my local comic book store where I buy all my books, and I was curious about it because I love the thing so much. But then I was like, you don't really like these kind of games, so I don't know. Like I just started playing D&D last year, and of course we haven't played since this all started. But I'm not as into it as I thought I would be.
Yeah.
And maybe if I had started when I was younger, I would be more into it now. But starting as a 50-something-year-old man, I don't know. I'm just not as into it as I thought I would be.
Okay.
So I don't know. I feel like I've missed a window on certain things that I missed as a kid. Trying to revisit them now, it's just not the same. The magic is not there, or I don't know. There's just something missing that it makes me sad. It makes me a little bit sad that I missed out on that. But okay, yeah, I knew we'd jump around like this.
It's the flow of the conversation. Yeah, well, I always find on these podcasts it's harder to keep things on track. Like in the past when I've done podcasts, like even something I'm saying now where I'm sort of acknowledging the process, I'd be like, oh no, you've got to stay on track, and it actually makes the conversation feel a lot more stilted to me. But
yeah, well, I listen to a lot of movie podcasts, and they all do this. It's just the conversation, and it's just better.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so let's go back in time a bit further. Other than the monster movies, did you ever watch any of like the Universal horror films? Dracula,
I did.
Creature of the Black Lagoon, and stuff like this?
Yeah, my father-in-law actually bought me the DVD box set a few years ago, and believe it or not, I have not watched all of the movies yet, but I have really strong intentions to do that. Like the other night, I watched The Invisible Man again, and then noticed how many sequels there were, and I was like, well, I haven't watched any of these sequels yet. I gotta watch these. And Vincent Price is actually in the second one, so that makes me even more interested to see that. But
is it that he then isn't in other sequels?
What's that?
So Vincent Price was the Invisible Man in The Invisible Man, but you're saying he was in the second one, but is he then not in later ones?
I don't think so, and he's not in the first one. He's only in the second one, as far as I can tell.
Well, one thing I'm aware of, and again, this might be slightly segued off, but my favourite of all of those kind of films is Abba and Costello Meet Frankenstein. And if you've seen that film, Vincent Price turns up right at the very end of it as the Invisible Man.
You know, I haven't seen it in a long time, but I've got to watch it again because I saw that when I was a kid, and I loved it. Of course, I don't know why, but I liked Abbott and Costello. I always liked them better than the Three Stooges for some reason.
Yeah, I love Abbott and Costello, and it's super weird for someone in the UK to really know the Abbott and Costellos like I do. But I grew up watching all of them, and the first one they did was not the first Abbott and Costello film, but the first Universal monster crossover they did was Meet Frankenstein. And after that, they would suddenly meet the Invisible Man, meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, meet the Mummy, and there may even be another one, but I think they were the four. And what was so good about it that works for me is that they had Bela Lugosi, they had Glenn Strange, they had who's the Wolfman? What's his name?
Lon Chaney Jr.
Lon Chaney Jr. And they had Vincent Price, and they all played it seriously. They played it completely as if they were playing the characters in their previous versions of the films. They played it straight, and then they let Abbott and Costello buffoon around them. So yeah.
I love horror comedies, so that's a given. So, but yes, getting back to it, I do like the original Universal monster movies. Matter of fact, I'm wearing.
There it is. Oh, hang on. So that's going to be. That's not Glenn Strange. That's going to be.
That's Boris.
Boris Karloff. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Um, yeah, I prefer him over the later ones. So, I mean, the as they progressed, man, they got really weird. They got so strange, which I mean isn't a bad thing, but they just got so weird. With John Carradine.
What you mean? In what way weird?
Well, I mean, just the story they would cobble together to try and get all these monsters together.
Yeah.
And then like, okay, well, Boris isn't around, so let's Bella. Well, like, so I forget which Frankenstein movie it is, but there's one where I think it might be Son of Frankenstein, where Basil Rathbone is Dr. Frankenstein and Bela Lugosi plays his assistant, but his name's not Igor; it's something else, I think.
Right.
Well, during that movie, Bela Lugosi's character and the monster Bela Lugosi kind of learns how to control the monster and uses him for murdering things. And then somehow in either that movie or the next movie, Bela Lugosi's brain gets transferred into the body of the monster. And,
wow. and
then Bela Lugosi starts playing the monster. I think he played the monster in one movie. So, and I think that's how they justify it. There's like, well, we've transplanted his brain, so his face kind of morphed to look more like Bella.
Yeah, that sounds super weird.
Yeah, and then I forget when Glenn Strange took over, but at some point he took over as the monster, and I mean, Bella just jumped around because he needed a job. I don't know if it's true, but I think they offered him the part of Frankenstein after Dracula.
Wow.
And he said that it was beneath him to play a part like that under all the makeup. So they gave it to Boris, and of course it was very popular. And then Bela regretted it. So after that, he was taking, I'll be I'm the mad scientist assistant, or I'll be the monster, I'll be whoever.
An interesting Bela Lugosi trivia point that I know is that after he died, he was buried in the Dracula costume.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool, because you can just imagine that at some point he will be back.
Yeah, I love the movie Ed Wood, which unfortunately I come to understand that a lot of what is in that movie is not true, but I still like that movie a lot, and I think Martin Landau did a great job playing Bela Lugosi.
Yeah, I've seen that so many years ago that I don't particularly remember it, and I think it was before I really came to appreciate that it was a story about like the making of another film kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think if you watched it now, you might really latch onto it more than maybe the first time you viewed it. So it's really, I haven't watched it this year because I haven't had a lot of time, but I pull that thing out all the time. It might be one of my top 10 favorite films.
Wow. I know I would definitely make a point of seeing that again.
I really enjoy that. So, because it's kind of a love letter to that period of time in Hollywood when they were making those kind of movies, especially in the 50s when they were making, everything for like $3, well, we don't have a budget. So, just throw the octopus, where's the octopus motor? Uh-oh, we forgot it. Well, Bella, just move the tentacles around a little bit, it'll be fine. It's dark. Nobody will be able to tell. So, so that, I love that. So, but yeah, so I'm sure I've seen most of all the Universal. My favorite Universal monster is the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure why. I think it might be just because visually he's amazing. The design on that creature is amazing.
Yeah, just with well, it's a proper monster, isn't it?
Yeah, It is. And even the third, and I don't know why, but the third movie is so weird, but I love it so much. It's the one where, I don't know if you've seen it, but because the
Probably.
first movie they're in the Amazon.
Yeah.
First movie they're in the Amazon, and I forget what happened, but it's kind of left open-ended. He kidnaps the girl, and they defeat the monster, and he goes back in the water, and you don't know what really happened. And then the second movie, they capture him and take him to this marine land, SeaWorld type place, and put him on display. And of course, he gets loose and wreaks havoc. Well, in the third movie, they're trying to recapture him. Oh, he escapes into the Everglades. They try to recapture him, and they accidentally light him on fire. His body starts to change and become more human. It grows, his gills go away, and he grows lungs and starts to become more like a human. So they do surgery on him to make him a little bit more human-like. And he wanders through the whole movie as like this half creature, half hulking man, kind of, just, I don't know. It is weird, but I like it so much. I don't know why. It's very strange.
Yeah, no, that sounds really, really weird.
So I don't know. I guess it's just the bizarre nature of all those movies. And of course, getting back to other monsters, any kind of a weird, like, I think the 50s were really good for the monster movies, because there's them, the giant ants.
Yeah, what was that? So It Came from the Desert? Did you ever see that?
No, I know of its existence, but I haven't seen it.
Oh, okay.
Is it any good?
No, not at all. But any of those ones where I suppose they do the trick photography, as they used to say.
Yeah.
Where they'd have like the person like in the distance, and in the foreground they'd have the ant, and then the woman would be like, "Ah, no!" like this, and it would just look like there's this giant like iguana or ant coming for her.
Yeah, they have a movie for everything back then. There's one with grasshoppers. There's one called Tarantula that I really like. I actually have it on DVD, and I pull it out every once in a while. And there's giant birds, and I don't know. There's just all kinds of weird. One of my favorites, though, and I'll tell you, you might get a kick out of this one. You might want to find it and watch it. It's called the Monolith Monsters.
Ooh, not heard.
And what it is this. I think it comes from space, because everything always comes from space.
Yeah.
But
it's like you said, where you said about we'd spoken all about Venus. Not about Venus, about zombies in Night of the Living Dead. They were like radiation from Venus. And then that one you said about things from Venus. And at the time, they had no idea that, like, even speaking about Abba and Costello, the movie, if you remember it, Abba and Costello Go to Mars, they actually went to Venus. They didn't go to Mars at any point.
Wow, I hadn't seen that one in a long time.
Yeah, but they had no idea that, like, Venus was like a hellish world, which, me saying this now, is like kind of ironic that a few weeks ago they suddenly announced that, oh, we've actually got signs of life from Venus. Like, did you hear that?
I did not.
No, legitimately, they've detected a chemical in its atmosphere, which is like an indication that could be that there is some sort of at least microscopic life forms there. Because if you go down to the surface of Venus, it's like being on hell. But if you go to a certain point up in the atmosphere, there's sort of like a Goldilocks zone where it's like, well, this is all right, this could support life. And they've now sensed something, they've detected something, a chemical, which they're like, that's a big indicator that there may be some element of life on that planet. So, maybe all these films did have it right.
Yeah, well, I did see today, I think it was today, that they were saying that there might be water on the moon.
Oh, I didn't hear that today.
Yeah, I think so. So that's that must be why Trump wants to build a base on the moon, because there's water up there now.
Yeah.
So,
tell you what, I'm all for that idea.
That's all we need.
Go to the moon.
So, but anyway, the Monolith Monsters, I think what happens is this, asteroid or meteorite comes into and lands, and when it comes in contact with water, it starts to grow these gigantic monolithic towers of this rock-like substance.
Yeah.
And anyone who touches it turns to stone. And the way it spreads is as they grow, they get too big and they fall over.
Right.
And then it starts to grow from what fell over. And in the movie, it starts to rain. And of course, so that causes huge problems. And they have to figure out in the end how to defeat that. And it's such a strange concept for a horror movie.
Again, I'm just looking at it, and it looks like giant, like Fortress of Solitude crystals. If you get the Superman.
Yeah, and you're like, somebody might walk up and say, "Well, what's the monster in the movie?" I'm like, "Well, giant rocks." Well, are they alive? No, they just grow and then fall over.
Yeah, that's very weird.
For some reason, it's really good. I saw it when I was a kid. When I was growing up, there was every afternoon there was a movie on TV, and it was called The Big Show. And they didn't always show horror movies, but I would always make sure I tuned in when they did. And I remember seeing that movie on that program. I saw a lot of the movies that I saw growing up on The Big Show.
Wow.
So even some, to this day, I think I might have made them up in my mind, because there's some images I have in my brain, and I'm like, well, what movie is that from? And I'm still searching, trying to find that.
You know what? Eventually, you'll probably find it. My dad always told me about a comic book he read when he was very young, and just to briefly tell you this story, the story would go that he'd got this comic book, or he'd got it secondhand, or bought it, or found it, or whatever, and he'd always say, and he'd turn over, and the last page was missing. And it was only when I was quite a lot older, I was like, how can you turn over a page and say it's missing? Because it's there, it's right there. But regardless, I decided about 8 or 9 years ago to make it like my mission. It's like, if I could track down that comic that he's been saying that he had when he was 5 years old, that would be a heck of a present. And it took me about 4 or 5 years, but eventually I found it. And when I found it, based on the information he told me, most of the details were right, a couple were wrong, but it was definitely the thing. So it probably is the case that whatever it is that you've got there, you'll discover at some point, and it'll suddenly be like, that was the film.
Yeah, I feel, and I have I have a friend who, he lives nearby here in Seattle. He's also an artist, and he did a deck of cards a couple of years ago, and it's all obscure monsters from horror movies.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I said, and I described the monster to him, and I said, does this ring a bell? And he said, no, it doesn't. So I'm starting to really think that I just made it up in my brain.
Okay, so what is the monster that you described?
Well, in my imagination, it comes out of a cave. Well, there's all these little versions of the monster that fly around kind of like birds.
Yeah.
But the big Mamma Jamma monster comes out of a cave, and it's like walking like a man, but it's just a big hulking thing. And its face looks like a bird, but the beak is not this way, it's sideways and goes like this.
Okay.
I cannot find it anywhere. So that's why I'm thinking, oh, you made that up.
Can't have done something like that. That's really specific.
So,
okay.
Now I've given you a quest.
Yeah, I know. Well, I just literally looked up sideways beak monster.
That would
And
be amazing if you found it right off the bat.
yeah, now there is something that's come up. It says beak thing, and it says Kenshi Wiki. I don't know what this is. So I don't think this. Oh no, what's that? That looks a lot more recent, but who knows? I'll be interested to find out what that could have potentially been.
I don't know. Maybe one day it'll pop up and I'll go, that's it. That's it. And then I'll
Yeah.
drop dead. Because, that'll be the end of my quest.
Did you ever see did you ever see the original version of the Thing from Another World?
Yeah, I've seen it a couple of times.
Any good? I've seen it again so many years ago, and it was a case of when I saw it, I was like, this isn't like The Thing. I thought this was going to be like The Thing, and it's kind of not like The Thing, other than a few details here and there.
To me, it's an odd film because the way the actors are directed, they talk over one another.
Yeah.
One person will talk and the next person will start talking before the first person stops talking. And it's just rapid fire dialogue. And I'm like, people don't talk like that. And so those parts of the movie really irritate me. When they're fighting the monster, that's kind of cool. But basically, it's just the explanation for the monster is that he's just a big giant vegetable.
Yeah.
So much so that when Mad Magazine parodied it, they made the monster a big giant carrot.
Yeah, I think I've seen something like that somewhere.
Yeah. So it's, I know it's a classic, but it's not one of my favorites.
Yeah. So have you ever seen any of the Invasion of the Body Snatchers films?
Yes. I think I've seen every version of it that's come out.
Okay, so there was the original, like 1950s black and white one.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was the 70s Donald Sutherland one.
Yes.
There was one in the 90s, which I think was just called Body Snatchers. Oh, well, yeah, Body Snatchers. And then there's the Daniel Craig, Nicole Kidman, The Invasion.
Yes.
So I think
there was also a television show called Invasion.
Is that related? Because I remember at the time being very confused if that was meant to actually be connected. And it was, to me, I found it painfully slow.
Well, it's not. There aren't pods or anything like that, but it is very related because people are being replaced.
Yeah.
And my wife and I both loved that show very much, and then it got
It only
canceled.
lasted one season, right? William Fichtner in it.
Yeah.
I found it painfully slow. By the time it was reaching the finale, I was like, okay, it's getting somewhere, but by that point, it was already cancelled.
Yeah, well, TV shows are like that. They drag things out so much.
Yeah.
When they really don't need to. I'm so happy that the days of 24 episode seasons are going away. I know we love British shows because they're 6 episodes and it's done.
Yeah. You know what though? Like I really liked US TV shows where it was like 24. So it was 24 episodes, or Prison Break or Lost or something. But in the last 5-10 years, it suddenly is where it'll be like The Walking Dead, when it was first on the first season, I think it was like 6 episodes. And then eventually they've built it up so it's about like 16 episodes a season. But like
I don't know. I guess it just depends. If it's a good show, I'm definitely want more episodes. But if they're just dragging out the obvious, I don't like that. I'm like, get on with it. Let's solve this mystery and move on to something else. So my wife and I have gotten impatient, and we'll give up on a show pretty easily nowadays because there's so much to watch.
Yeah, so true. Okay, coming back to Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which do you think is the best version or the worst version, or thoughts on them overall?
I don't know if I can say which is the best or worst, but my favorite is the 70s one. with
Absolutely, that's that is by far the best in my opinion.
Leonard Nimoy and Donald Sutherland and Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, what a cast.
It's just it's a weird film, but I like it. Very, very odd, especially that ending. Wow. Whew. That's
Do you know
so
what? Like, see, for me, in my head, we were speaking about The Thing earlier. Invasion of the Body Snatchers is another film where I feel like it's got this foreboding, this sense of you don't know who you can trust, and the fact that people are being taken over or replaced. And I felt that the 1970s Invasion of the Body Snatchers was such a great film. Both, one of the things I like about The Thing, one of the things I like about Invasion is the sense of atmosphere. For me, a horror film like lives and dies on the atmosphere it can create. You know,
yes,
you're watching something and you just like, if it can create a sense of seeing things that would be, or like if you see a monster and it's scary, then yeah, it's scary. But I think if you can take something that looks normal and suddenly make you feel paranoid about it, suddenly make you feel afraid of the things that are just around you, like, oh, the person in the same room with me might be the thing. You know, it's just like it can. That is what I find to be really scary in horror films.
yeah, yeah, because it's not quite believable, but it's right there on the edge.
Yeah,
And you're like, well, maybe that could be. I don't know. That's kind of scary because it, the ones that are like, if there's a giant monster at the bottom of the sea and it's going to come get us. Well, we pretty much know that's not going to happen.
yeah,
But and then of course you watch slasher movies and you get scared of a big guy with a knife coming after you, because I mean that could happen, and it probably won't, but it could.
yes,
Even if there is a slight supernatural element like Freddy or like Jason coming back from the dead, if that's truly what happened to him. I mean, we really don't know. But and then like the movies that do it really well, more like a thriller, where it's like Silence of the Lambs.
yeah. That's one of my favorite films as well.
Where it's like Hannibal Lecter, and you're like, oh God, not only is he a killer, but he's a smart killer.
Yeah,
He's smarter than me. He's going to get me and eat me.
yeah, absolutely. And again, like Silence of the Lambs, when you watch that film, and I think I was speaking about, I'm probably just going to retread the same things I said to Danny on the last podcast, but there are scenes in that where like a character turns up. I think there's a scene in the library, just to not tell the story about the cat again, but there's a scene in the library, and I think this is Silence of the Lambs, maybe it's Red Dragon or whatever, but I think Jodie Foster's character goes over and she's looking something up. Oh no, do you know what? I'm telling a lie. I might be referencing a completely different film here. There's another films of that similar feel. I would say the first Saw feels similar to Silence of the Lambs, and there's a film called Bone Collector as well,
Yes.
which again is a similar feel. But it's one of these films, and I was trying to say something that wasn't in Silence of the Lambs. The thing I think I was thinking about was when she goes and there's like a garage, and she has to crawl underneath, and there's just like the creepy guy and stuff like this. And so she feels, just when you can make a character feel isolated, and then just the person they're interacting with just seems slightly unsettling. It's like, that's a red herring character. But the thing I think I was thinking of might have been in The Bone Collector, where a character goes to a library, and it's just like the librarian just got a slightly creepy feel to it, and you could just feel like the main character just trying to keep their distance. And just when you get the sense of someone doing that, as a viewer, you're like, oh no, like this is definitely, this is the person, this is the person. Oh no, wait, it wasn't that person. And then they'll like take you by surprise. If, just to give a different movie reference, like in the movie Seven, suddenly at the end, spoiler warning, when John Doe turns up and it's just like in plain sight of everyone and who it is and everything. You know,
That's a good one.
Yeah, again, but like 7, The Bone Collector, Silence of the Lambs, and the first Saw, I'd say they're like thrillers. They've got frightening elements, but I wouldn't necessarily say that I'd consider them horror movies.
No, but I don't know. I feel like they're right there on the edge.
Yeah.
7 definitely close because of the atmosphere and the horrendous nature of the murders, and the special effects are by the same guy that did The Thing, so they're top notch.
Yeah.
Really, really good special effects. That movie is creepy as hell. Kevin Spacey did such a good job of doing that, being the villain in that.
Yeah.
So there's a fine line sometimes between a thriller and horror, but I don't mind. I don't know. I feel like if it's, because I saw Silence of the Lamb with a female friend of mine when we saw it in the theater, and she had a hold of my arm the whole time. She was freaked out, and I was freaked out too. But I was trying to be cool. I'm like, oh yeah, it's scary, but I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, I think for me, there will be spoilers on this podcast, just if we haven't spoiled a lot already. For me, before I'd even seen Silence of the Lambs, I'd seen some of the film Hannibal, which is the sequel. And the scene with Ray Liotta towards the end, where it's like he's cuts out a piece of his brain, Hannibal Lecter, and he cooks it and feeds it back to him. I was like, that played on my mind so much. Just like, I was like, oh my God, that thing. And I wish I hadn't seen that, wish I hadn't seen it. And like, just during the course, I suppose, of living, you end up seeing more of these things. And then you become desensitized to it. And once you've seen something once and you know it's coming, then you begin to cope with it. I don't know. But in Silence of the Lambs, the closest then when I did watch that was where Lecter was wearing the cop's face as a mask so he could escape. I mean, my goodness, what an incredible idea to put into that film.
Yeah,
terrifying.
Yeah, I enjoyed that movie so much. I read all of the books.
Yeah,
and I didn't really like Hannibal, the movie, or the book.
No, I think a lot of people weren't keen on obviously they changed the ending in the movie because the book went for like shock factor and stuff to the point that Jodie Foster was like, I'm not going to be in this film. Then they changed the ending anyway, which didn't really resolve anything.
Yeah.
Did you?
I do like Red.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I know, and y'all talked about this the other day, but I do like Red Dragon. I like both versions actually.
I kind of can't stomach watching Manhunter. It's like too 80s for me.
Well, I have not seen it in a long time. Maybe I would feel differently now, but what sticks out in my mind is that scene where the killer, spoilers everybody, the killer is running towards the window to jump through and get the girl, I guess, and Inagata Devita is playing. And that, I don't know why, but that whole sequence just works really well for me. And the killer's played by Tom Noonan, who is a super creepy actor, so that worked as well. But I think Ray Fiennes did a really, really good job.
Like the thing with the film of the Red Dragon film, the one that was titled Red Dragon, is I felt it needed to be slightly longer. It felt ever so slightly rushed. And there were some bits of it that didn't, which as many times I've seen it, and I've seen it a bunch of times, didn't quite make sense for me. Like right at the beginning, when Will Graham, which is Ed Norton's character, is with Hannibal Lecter, and apparently this isn't in the book. You just hear about it. You don't see it play out in real time. And Will Graham's there, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, I've almost figured this out." And the thing he's almost figured out is Hannibal Lecter. And Hannibal Lecter's like, oh, it's okay, you'll come upon it, or whatever. And I'm like, it's like, what? I didn't quite understand where they were going with Will Graham's thought process, because he isn't saying this to entrap Lecter. And so the timing and the way he figured out the Lecter was the bad guy there and then, just as he was about to be killed, because he hadn't figured it out. He had gone to him just as a coincidence, apparently, and then happened to figure it out when he was there. It was
Isn't it because he saw the book about
yeah, but
people?
Exactly, he saw it then, about like the oysters or whatever on the back, or whatever. But he's at Lecter's place saying, oh, and I'd almost got it. And he's literally speaking about that case. And it's just too convenient that he's there. It strikes me as a bit weird.
Yeah. Well, the whole movie was done so that they could get Anthony Hopkins in there as Hannibal Lecter again. That's the entire reason for that. We just got lucky that it turned out to be a good movie.
Yeah. Did you ever see the TV show Hannibal?
I did. I was going to ask you about it. I was going to see what you thought about it.
Okay, I'll tell you my thoughts. Okay. I wish it had been made by someone else. Is my big thought. And the reason I say that is because I felt they were I forget who made it, Brian Fuller or someone like this.
Yeah, it is Brian Fuller.
Yeah, super obsessed with the style, the visual, making it something visually unique, making it like a work of art visually. And I felt that sacrificed a lot of story. Also, just the storyline choices that were made in it. Like, there was a lot of hype before it came out, where it was like, now, if you didn't know this was based on Hannibal Lecter, you wouldn't know that he would turn out to be the bad guy. And you watch the pilot episode, and it's like Will Graham saying, oh my God, this person is a cannibal. And it cuts straight to a shot of Hannibal Lecter eating. It's like, well, that's a massive giveaway. It's like they didn't do enough to make the Hannibal character seem this pleasant, unassuming person that later there's this big reveal about. And also the fact that there was another cannibal in it, the fact that for some reason, because they couldn't have Jodie Foster, Clarice Starling in it, they were like, right, and that was the copyright thing, because one TV channel was going to make Clarice, the other was going to make Hannibal. They wouldn't let each other use each other's characters. But they were like, right, so we're going to take the storyline with Clarice and Hannibal, where eventually, as happens in the end of the book, not Jodie Foster, Clarice gives herself to Hannibal at the end of Hannibal. And they basically imposed that onto the story and the character with Will Graham. And to me, it's like, well, that's just not the story. Will Graham was the one who stopped him. And by making it so that there's some weird love story there, it's like, well, this is just a really stylized, inaccurate adaptation.
Yeah.
But there was stuff I liked about it. There was stuff I liked about it.
Yeah, I had forgotten, because I was about to say, I heard somewhere about the copyright thing, and I think you and Danny talked about it. That's probably where I think that's where I heard it. And up until then, I did not know that was an issue, and I always wondered why they skipped all that stuff. Buffalo Bill and Clarice and all that stuff. So there were definitely things in it that I found odd and not quite on the mark. But since I'm a visual artist, I did enjoy the visuals of it. I enjoyed the subtle, or maybe not so subtle, tying in of the Wendigo legend with Hannibal.
Is that the bull thing?
It's the antlers, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, not bull, antlers.
Yeah. The Wendigo. I don't know how. Basically, a human will become a cannibal, and becomes a Wendigo. And I thought, oh well, that's kind of clever, tying that in with Hannibal there. But But you're right. Brian Fuller tends to, it's kind of style over substance with him.
Yeah.
And I do enjoy the style, and we did watch the entire show because I don't know why. I guess it was intriguing enough to keep us interested, but there were definitely things missing.
I watched the entire show for the reason that I really liked the movie adaptations, and I felt that this is a version of something I already like. If the movies hadn't existed, I probably wouldn't have stuck with the story they told in the TV show.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
And there was a similar thing. Did you see the TV show? Because they came out right at the same time. What was it called? Bates Motel, based on Psycho.
Yes, we watched the whole thing.
Yeah, same. I watched all of Bates Motel, and to me, both of them could have been slightly better. Both Bates Motel and Hannibal could have been slightly better. I think a problem both of them fell into, and then Hannibal really struggled with, was that it was doing like a story a week versus a serialized story over lots of episodes. And both of them ended up having like way too many serial killers, way too many, like every single week in Hannibal, there was like, okay, so people love the movie where the cop is like hung up like an angel. So in every single week of this, we need to have some horrific visual thing. And it's like, how cursed is this city, is this state, or this town? Like that there is some absolute maniac that can turn his victims into art every week. And it could have just been that you could have paced it out so that, okay, there is one person that we're after, and there are these weird things. And by doing too many big things over and over again, to me, it's sort of like it made the whole place, the whole logic of the town, the scenario they're in, less believable. And similarly in Psycho, it had the prequel problem, which if you're familiar, do you remember Smallville, which was a prequel to Superman?
Yeah, I never watched it, but I'm familiar.
Okay, well, the problem with it, and this is a problem with a lot of prequels, is there's the thing that they're making a prequel to, and there's all of the elements in the thing. Superman in this instance, I don't mean the thing, right? So there's Superman, and the prequel to Superman, every single week there was someone with superpowers, and there was kryptonite, and there was flying like this, and it's like, but hang on, he hasn't become Superman yet. So by the time he's Superman, why would anyone call him Superman? Because it's nothing super. There's already been 50 people like this. And in Bates Motel, if you watch the movie Psycho, they say about, oh yeah, like Norman's mother killed herself and her lover. And that's just the Bates place, where no reason to think anything weird there, except for by the time it actually caught up to Psycho, there'd been about 50 deaths in that motel. And it's like, well, if there's anything goes wrong in this town, you know to go to the Bates Motel, because this is where we already know that Norman has killed about 10 people. This is where the mother's killed about 10 people, and the cop has killed about 10 people. And it's just that they were doing the thing that they're building up to before they reached it. And it's just that I feel that with especially if you're going to do a prequel, you need to think, what stories can we tell that will get us to that point? And this comes back to what you were saying earlier, where how much padding are they going to put in? You know, it's like, oh well, we've got to have a murder, and there was just like loads in both shows before you reached the point. So the fact that it would come out that Hannibal Lecter is the serial killer, it's like, well, yeah, of course he was, because all these people around him kept dying.
Well, maybe I feel like we could transition right here briefly, or maybe not briefly, into horror television, or even television in general, because I agree with you about everything you just said. A lot of the reasons, I'm always interested when I see a trailer for a horror television show, but 9 times out of 10 they don't pay off, and I don't end up watching them because they fall prey to that monster of the week, formulaic thing. That's why I didn't keep watching Grimm. That's why I did not keep watching Sleepy Hollow. It's why I didn't keep watching. Well, I was going to say Supernatural, but I stopped watching that for other reasons.
Right.
And you know, the best horror television shows are the ones that go beyond the monster of the week formula and build in an overarching story and mystery that lingers through the whole series. Like, I mean, it's not necessarily completely horror, but it has horror elements. And that the show Fringe. Did you ever watch Fringe?
So many years ago. That was. Yeah. I felt that was quite. Wasn't that a bit sci-fi?
Yeah, it's more sci-fi, but there were, you know, sometimes there was horror elements. Supernatural, I thought, was really good. It was originally made to only last 5 seasons, and the story was supposed to wrap up and be done at 5. And then, you know, they realized, oh, we're making money with this, so they kept going. And when they kept going, it got crappy. If you watch it and stop at 5, it's a pretty darn good show. But after season 5, my wife and I, we both loved the show, but we're like, I can't watch this anymore.
Yeah.
Because every year this cliffhanger was somebody got sent to hell. And I'm like, well, who are they going to send to hell this year? You know? And then the first few episodes of the next season is trying to get that person out of hell. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, they've done this already.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch that. And I'm curious now. Oh, I'm trying to think of some good horror shows I've watched recently. I liked The Exorcist, the television version. Yeah, the TV series of The Exorcist. I liked that. I love Stranger Things. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I love Stranger Things. I think with Stranger Things, and it'll be interesting to see how long they go on with it, I think each series has got slightly worse than the last, though.
Yeah, I would agree.
Because I think some of what made it so, the appeal of it, a lot of it, I think, was the nostalgia element. But also, one of the problems just with sequels and like with a TV series keeping it going is when you first watch something, you, along with the characters, get the sense of, oh, what's this thing? Oh, this thing is shocking. But then you get the problem is that after Terminator 1, Sarah Connor is then like, I'm a badass, I know how to handle these things. And she isn't afraid anymore. And everyone's just used to it. And they also, again, to give another similar comparison, they have to go from Alien to Aliens, to an army of aliens, to, if you saw Independence Day, where it's like they blew up the White House, to Independence Day 2, they like blew up half the planet. And it's like, you don't always have to make everything bigger, because sometimes it just loses the personal story of it all.
Oh yeah, I agree. It's I always see these sequel, you know, all these beloved movies from the past, and 9 times out of 10, sometimes I'm excited I'm like, oh well, yeah, I'll watch that. But sometimes I'm like, you know, we don't need that.
Yeah.
Like, we just don't need it. So I don't know. I've gotten to the point lately where I'm having a hard time watching stuff, because I want to watch something that's good, and I feel like everything that's good I've already seen.
Yeah, I agree. Did you see, now I know there's a sequel or something out, or just another series which has got a new story, but did you see the Haunting of Hill House?
Yes, I've seen both versions.
Okay, so I haven't seen the new one yet, just because I haven't had time recently, but I intend to. But I know it's, well, don't spoil anything. To my understanding on this, it's a completely new story, unrelated, but it's just, this is another story of set within the same, well, by the same people, another haunting story. But the original one, you know, it wrapped itself up within one series. It told its story. Yeah. And then if they'd got to the end of that and said, okay, well, we need to bring these characters back, it would have felt really forced. And so the idea of, and I suppose, have you ever seen American Horror Story?
Yeah, but I gave up after a few seasons because I don't know why, but we tried. I think the most recent one we tried to watch was the one about the. It's kind of documentary style about the two people that move into the house, way out in the middle of nowhere, and
I only watched the
I don't
first
know.
series of it, but then I started watching the second, and I was like, oh, it's a completely new story, new characters. And for me, that I was like, okay, this could work. For the fact that, well, the new story might not be any good, but they're not trying to extend the old story anymore.
Right.
Old.
Right.
And it's what they went for with Halloween. After
Yes.
Halloween 2, they made the third one, which was a completely different story. And everyone was like, why is this a completely different story? And then they quickly backpedaled from that. But then as all of the Halloween films went on, they lost their way, to the point that when they made, if you've seen them all, Halloween H2O ignored everything after Halloween 2. And then they made a sequel to that. And inevitably they did a reboot, which was like, oh, people don't like this. So then the next one they made says, oh no, it's a sequel to the original series, but we're just going to ignore everything after the first one. So often, and that's just, it demonstrates that more often than not, the sequels kind of water down what the original was.
Yeah. I have never seen Halloween 4, 5, H2O, whatever the follow-up to that was.
Yeah.
I've never seen any of those. I've always been interested.
H2O is a good film. Halloween H2O is a good film. 4, 5, 6 aren't. Well, they're all right. You can watch them and enjoy it enough, but they're not worthy follow-ups to the original.
Yeah.
But you can watch Halloween H2O, and it is it's a good film. The sequel to it, I think, was called Resurrection, is a bad film, like a really bad film.
Oh,
the remake, that came out about 10 years ago, is a decent film. It's a good remake. Adds new things into it which feel valid, but the actual bits that kind of remake the original probably aren't as good. The sequel to it was a terrible film. And then, have you seen the Halloween film that came out a couple of years ago?
Yes.
What did you think of it?
I thought it was meh.
Okay, I really liked it. I thought
did?
Yeah, I thought what they did so well about it is they took away any of this stuff Halloween 4, 5, 6, etc. introduced that Michael Myers has got any supernatural element, and they just made him a scary man. Because half of the first half hour to 45 minutes, he doesn't even have his mask. They don't show you his face, which is clever, but you see the edge of it. But you can definitely see he's a man. He's a man that's been locked up, and so obviously he's human. But when he's out there, again, it's just this idea of taking something that's now not supernatural anymore. He's something quite ordinary. He's just a dangerous person.
Yeah. Sometimes, I only saw it the one time, and I feel like I probably will need to watch it again to really hone in on why it didn't resonate with me. But right now, I don't know. I can't recall why I didn't care for it. But I do. I don't know how you feel, because I'm going to backtrack a little bit. But Halloween 3, I love that movie. That movie is batshit crazy, and I love it for it. And it makes me wish that they had continued that. The movie's called Halloween, but it has nothing to do with the previous movie.
Yeah. I quite liked Halloween 3. There's bits of it which I wasn't so keen on. Like the main guy in it, I thought he wasn't a particularly likable hero of the story. But the ending, like the cliffhanger it ends on.
Yeah.
Like, turn it off. And it cuts. It's like, that's great,
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely got some cheesy stuff in it.
Yeah. But I tell you what, this is going, I suppose, back to television a bit. Are you a fan of the Twilight Zone?
Yes, I kind of wanted to watch all of them at some point, but I have not gotten all the way through. But I have tried to watch quite a few of them,
Yeah,
and they're almost always enjoyable.
yeah. Well, one of like the big pleasures of a few years ago when there was Netflix is you could make it so you could get the American version of Netflix in the UK, and the American version has twice as many films and TV shows as the British version. And one of the things you got was the Twilight Zone on there, and I was watching loads of them. Then they made it so that you couldn't get it. They geo-locked it, which was a real pain. And then a few months ago, I was like, you have to get like a VPN and do all this other stuff, and some of them work and some of them don't. But I could get the American version again, which had got the Twilight Zone on it, and it was literally the first thing I looked for because we couldn't get it here for years. But some of those original Twilight Zone episodes are super creepy and so inventive. You know,
Yeah.
like one of the most famous episodes, I suppose, is the one where people have got like pig faces.
Yeah.
And then there's the person, and you like throughout that whole episode, you just kind of subconsciously take it in. They never show you anyone's face. You see lots of nurses and doctors from behind, from the side. You never see their face. And then there's the person with bandages about, oh, you're a monster sort of thing. And it turns out that's the human and everyone else is something else.
Yeah. Yeah, I love those twists. Those shows that have twists like that. And one day, hopefully, I mean, I don't even know which streaming service they're on anymore, but maybe I'll find them and continue watching them.
Yeah, they've done like a few new versions of Twilight Zone, including like there is a brand new like TV series of Twilight Zone. Did you know?
Yeah,
this?
I haven't seen any of those yet.
I would say all of them have had potential, and all of them to me feel like they were like a first draft. That lots of the episodes just should be twice as long so that they don't rush through the potential of the episodes. And some of them are clearly inspired by like some of the classic ones, like what was it, like Nightmare at 300,000 feet or something like this, or 30,000 feet. Like
did they redo that one again?
Yeah, they did it in the movie.
Yeah, John Lithgow.
Yeah, and then they did a new version. I won't say any spoilers because it is brand new.
Okay.
But they play with, we've got this familiar setting, but they do something very different with it.
Okay.
So when you watch it and you're like, oh, he's going to look out the window and there's going to be the thing there and something's going to happen then, and then no one will believe in this and that. They just do something radically different with it. And I won't say watch, because that way it could be in any infinite different directions that they go with it. But it's just not as good. It's like I said about like the Thing prequel, how it's like they emulated the first one, but the choices they made to make it different actually just weren't as good.
Yeah, I like I said before, I don't know, horror TV shows, just most of them are missed for me. My wife and I tried. There's a new one that popped up on Hulu a couple of weeks ago called Monsterland.
Okay.
And we watched 2 episodes, and we were just looking at each other going, what is this? No. So we didn't continue.
Yeah.
Because
no, go on.
Around Halloween time, we're always looking for something Halloweenish to watch. And my wife, she can't handle the more gross movie. Like she won't watch Slither with me. She won't watch, anything. She won't watch The Thing. She doesn't like all that gross out special effects stuff. She will watch a zombie movie, which is kind of funny because it's got a lot of blood and guts, but I don't know what it is. Something about that she likes. But I don't know. Just where was I going with this?
I don't know. Actually, just looking at the time, we should start to wrap things up. But we could definitely do another one of these, talk more because we jumped, like we said we jumped all over the time. We started off with what was it, like Godzilla? And what was the other one that was like Godzilla that you mentioned?
Oh, Gamera.
Gamera, yeah. So we started off with Gamera. We've moved to Invasion of the Body Snatchers. We've moved to the Haunting.
Oh yeah, we jumped around.
Supernatural, and yeah, no, but there's so many great horror films. Oh, just in case we didn't actually cover this, what is your favorite horror movie?
The Thing.
Ah, yeah, almost certainly likewise.
Over the years, I've kind of, I've been like, what is my favorite horror movie? And I'll always come back to that one because it's even though it's as old as it is, it's still great.
Yeah. Okay. Here's a question. Do you have a favorite bad horror movie? So one where if you said, "Oh, I really like this film," everyone would be like, "What?" But it's like you like it regardless.
I'm sure I do. I wish I could see my DVD shelf right now to think about it. But yeah, there's definitely bad movies that I like. But I'm trying to think of one right now that doesn't spring to mind. I'm going to tell you something about me that you don't know. There's a lot of there are movies out there that people just they just fawn over like crazy, and I'm just like, I don't like that movie. I am very much almost always the opposite of what other people think of movies.
Okay, can you give me an example? What's like a movie that everyone likes that you don't?
I'm trying to think of one right now, and it's not popping to mind. Gosh, I wish it would come to mind. But it's just, I don't know. It just seems like that happens to me all the time. People will be like, "Oh, I really love this book." And I'm like, "Really? That book sucked." Yeah. Or, "I really love this movie." You do? Because that movie
I often find if something's won an Oscar, I often find that's a reason why it's like, oh, this is going to be dodgy.
Well, that's a good reason, because the Oscars are just awful. All the award shows, it's just, a Grammy. If somebody wins a Grammy award, you can almost be rest assured I'm never going to listen to their music.
Well, see, this is the thing that now there's definitely Oscar-winning films I like. Do you like The Shawshank Redemption?
I do like that movie.
Okay, so that's a film often people say, "Oh, it's the best movie," and I think that's such a good film. But
did it win?
I don't know. I can't remember. I think it was nominated for stuff. I don't know. Maybe not. But there was a film that won loads, like how Titanic won loads, which I don't mind that movie. But The English Patient.
Oh God, I was fixing to. That popped into my head too. That's one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life.
Exactly. And like La La Land, if you've ever seen that, I was so bored to tears watching La La Land.
God, I went to see The English Patient with a friend of mine, and I was just sitting there going, "What? This is garbage. This is pure garbage."
Yeah. Okay, the example I was going to give of like a movie which I don't think would be on many people's radar as like a good horror film, but one I've always enjoyed, is a film called Darkness Falls, which the bad guy of it is the Tooth Fairy.
I've never seen that, but I want to see it.
Do you know what? It's a film where literally one of the pieces of trivia about it is that it's got like a lot of intro at the beginning, just because the film didn't last long enough. And so they put on a lot of text just to tell you the backstory of it. But again, it's just a creepy idea. And they come up with what I think is like a legit, and like on the DVD, it's got like a documentary, which is about this fictional version of the Tooth Fairy, which I think actually adds to it. But it's just the idea that, oh, once you've seen this thing, then it's going to come and get you. And I think that's legitimately quite a good one, but I don't think that's on many people's radar as a great horror film.
No, like I said before, there are so many movies that I've missed, and they're all, I don't have a written out list or anything, but they're always in the back of my head. If I come across them and see them, but finding them to watch and then actually having the time to watch them is two different things, and it almost never lines up. Which is a shame. I try to watch stuff as it pops up on Amazon Prime and the other streaming services. Like the other day, this old Hammer horror movie popped up. We haven't talked about Hammer at all.
No.
Popped up. It's called The Skull, and I watched that. And for a Hammer horror type, I don't even remember if it is a Hammer film, but it's very similar to a Hammer film. And for what it was, I enjoyed it. And then I noticed the other day that one popped up called Frankenstein versus the Monster, or Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell, which I never saw. So I'm hoping that maybe I can fit that in and watch that sometime, because it's one of the Peter Cushing Frankenstein movies from the Hammer period. So I'm always on the lookout for stuff that I missed as a kid. And I'm also, if a good new movie comes out, I want to see it, because I remember you and Danny were talking about It Follows the other day, and I was, I agreed completely with everything you said. That movie is just creepy and weird and cool, and I love it.
Yeah, that's such a good film.
And speaking of let me just throw these out at you, and I mean, you can cut us off and end it whenever you want.
Sure.
But two newer horror movies that I've seen recently that I wouldn't say they were scary, but they were so disconcerting that they stayed with me for a long time. And it just so happens, I think they're directed by the same person.
Okay.
Hereditary.
Do you know what? I've tried watching that 3 times, and I get about half an hour in, and then I just have other things to do. I've never got into that film.
Oh, do you get past? God, I hate to say.
No, don't give the spoiler. Don't give the spoiler. No, I haven't got very far into it. I always mean to, but I think that is one of these things that either you love it or you hate it.
Well, I can't say whether I love it or hate it. I don't know if I'll ever watch it again. But that movie creeped me way out.
Right.
Big time. And the other one is the same guy directed, called Midsummer.
Oh, I've not even heard of it.
Where it's not scary, but it is just really weird and creepy, and just I don't, like I said, I don't know if I'll ever watch it again. I'm kind of glad I watched it, but I don't know if I'd watch it again. Yeah. So and yet I'm like, okay, well, wonder what he'll do next. Because there's always a little bit, it's like, oh, this is just different enough that it's interesting.
Yeah, okay. I will watch Hereditary, and I'll look up that other one then.
So, well, I feel like if you can get past that one point, I wasn't ready for it.
Okay.
I think when you get to it, I think you'll know what I'm talking about. But I was not ready for it. And it set the tone for the whole rest of the movie. And I was just like, oh my God, I don't know. I don't know about this movie, but I just kept watching because it was so weird and creepy. So
okay, awesome. I will check that out. So, Marty, at that point, I will wrap this one for now, but I think there's definitely more that we can come back to another time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
There's always something to talk about.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And there'll be other films. I'm sure you like other genres as well.
I do. I like movies a lot.
Awesome. Then we will do another of these. So with that, this has been the Mega Movie Podcast from Extreme Improv. My name is David Pustansky. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at David Pustansky, spelled Pustansky. Marty, where can everyone find you?
Check me out at What Would Jesus Glue on Instagram, and on Facebook, I'm under my name, Marty Gordon. And let me just say thank you for letting me do that. I've always wanted to do a podcast, and so this is my first one.
Awesome.
And so you've helped me put a check mark on my bucket list.
Amazing. Well, we can definitely do more. So brilliant, guys. This is the Mega Movie Podcast, like I said, which is available on all major podcast platforms, if it's Apple, if it's Spotify, if it's Google Podcasts, wherever. Also, you can watch the video version of it, I'm sure some of you are, on the Extreme Improv YouTube channel, which is www.youtube.com/ facebook.com/extreme improv, and you can also find it on our Facebook page at facebook.com/extreme improv. So until next time, do check out some good movies, some horror movies, as it is the scary period, or if you're listening to this at a future date, go and watch a horror movie because they work all year round. And until next time, bye for now.